Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined in the studio today by Jonathan Voico.
I'm here.
Ray's not. Ray cracked a rib.
Yeah.
Have we told people how he cracked his rib?
I feel like we got into it a little bit, but I can't quite recall. They just know he's hurt.
He's my brother-in-law. I'm allowed to say it.
They thought he was sitting on a cactus on Monday.
That's what his face kind of looked
Yeah.
like. Monday, you know what's funny? About a month ago, Anne's over at the house and sees that Ray just has a towel on the floor to step on as he gets out of the shower.
Yeah.
And Anne says, you know, you should really get one of those mats that has the rubber on the bottom for when you get out of the shower.
Irony.
Sure enough, Monday, Ray is stepping out of the shower, puts his foot down on the towel, whoop, and he comes face down, ribs first, onto the edge of the bathtub. And sure enough, we took him to the emergency later in the evening. Sure enough, cracked the old rib.
Yeah,
And-
a fracture, hairline fracture.
Hairline fracture in the rib, and he's having a very, very hard time moving. He's going to be fine. He's going to be 100% fine, but right now, he's having a bit of a hard time moving around and stuff like that. So he's going to be taking another day off. But more importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making this little show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a bunch of predetermined topics. Then in the second part of the show, well, we're going to take your live comments and questions. If you're watching the show right now and you have a comment or question or an observation or a theory you'd like us to address, as long as we deem it appropriate to be addressed, go ahead and use our tip link at www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. And here's the good news. This tip link is good 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you think of a question later on in the day, no problem. Just send it on in and we'll get around to it on the next episode. Also, want to remind you guys that the John Campea Show podcast is primarily, well, a podcast. And you can't always be in front of a YouTube video. Maybe you'll be on the road, commuting, you're at the gym, you're at work, whatever. Go today and subscribe to the John Campea Show audio version podcast on your favorite podcasting app of choice, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any others. So that way, the audio version is going to be there when you need it. All right, guys. With that all down, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about here today. So let's not waste any more time and get right to it. A little earlier, Marvel put out a video on YouTube celebrating 85 years of Marvel. And it was a short video. I think it was like, what, 2-3 minutes?
Yeah, just a little trailer.
just a little thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, it was really special. What's that? Is that Doug back there? Looks like Doug.
Just noticed his shirt.
I'm going to guess that's Doug. So it's a really cool little piece for a couple of reasons. One, for the more obvious reasons, is it gave us a couple of still images. The first time officially we've been given these still images.
Mhm.
Now let's take a look at a couple of them
Sure.
here. So one of the still images we got was this look at the Thunderbolts coming up in an elevator. I love the image in it. We've got Red Guardian, who I believe is going to be the MVP of this movie. I think he's one of my favorite guys in the MCU right now. We got Ghost back there, Winter Soldier. Of course, we got Discount Walmart, Captain America,
Yeah, U.S. agent.
U.S. Agent, and we got Yelena sitting there in the front. So that gave us our first kind of good look at that. Also, we got a peek at Daredevil.
Mm-hmm. Boop.
Now, some people, when this image came out and got shown, people were asking, wait a minute, why is Daredevil's eyes glowing red? He's not supernatural. If you actually look closely at the photo, Daredevil's eye is not glowing red. It is clearly the reflection of a red light that he's probably standing across from.
Mm-hmm.
So no, don't worry about it. Some people thought, oh my God, Daredevil's going supernatural. No, he's not. It's just the reflection of a red light. No big deal. But still, a nice, good close-up look at Charlie Cox's Daredevil. And then the one that most people have been talking about. Harrison Ford getting mad that you're on his lawn.
Yeah, getting ready for the beach, it looks like.
Yeah, and it was really great because it came right at the end.
Yeah.
of the little 85th video where it starts with him still down behind the presidential podium and then standing up. And I gotta say, it looks pretty good. I mean, he looks really good. I'm not even sure. Is this practical or is this CGI? Or is this just Harrison Ford in red makeup?
No.
Might be.
Could be. I mean, he's a pretty tough guy.
He's a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
You know, flying planes, all that kind of stuff. So those looked really good. I like the look that we got of those. But here's the other thing. Besides the images that we got, the little piece itself was really quite moving.
Mm-hmm.
And they touched on something in it that I think is worth mentioning. One of the great powerful things about the comic book genre, about superhero films, is that they allow us and allow storytellers to touch on truly big issues of the human experience through a fantastical lens. And sometimes telling stories through a fantastical lens offer us an even better opportunity to really nail human experience things. They said in it, you know, it's through these lenses, it gives us a canvas to paint these stories that are truly very real issues that a lot of us deal with, but we tell them in fantastical ways. So they transcend cultures, they transcend ethnicities, they transcend socioeconomic, position.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell these stories and make these observations about the human experience and stories about the human experience, but through these fantastical lenses, and it allows us to kind of bypass a lot of the other baggage that comes along with it. I'm going to take, for example, a movie like Crazy Rich Asians. I know some people that didn't go to see Crazy Rich Asians because they're dumb, but also because they're like, well, I mean, I'm not Asian, so that's not for me. And like, if you watch Crazy Rich Asians, you realize they're telling experiences that all of us have.
Yeah, it's just a human experience.
Through the unique lens of an Asian culture, yes. But something like comic book movies that they kind of bring up in this is that it allows us to bypass all that baggage, right? We're able to just look at issues and experiences and dilemmas and hurdles that we all face as people and as individuals. And it was really quite a beautiful little piece. I actually really, really did enjoy it. And then throwing in the little, the historical pieces of it, having Stan Lee in there and all that kind of stuff. It was really nice. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, and just the fact that, touching on the historical part, it just shows that generations have grown up with Marvel.
Yes.
So going back to the 40s, I mean, there's people now that they don't think about comic books or anything like that anymore. But at one point, like that one kid was holding a comic that could be worth like $100,000 right now. You know what I mean? As a collector, but those stories touched generations, in some cases, great grandparents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To now. So
it's
mean, crazy.
The same experiences that you and I are having now, Doug had.
Yeah.
It's like, so you're right. It kind of transposes generations as well. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What did you think about? Did you have a chance to check out this Marvel 85th little video that they put out? I thought it was really nice. It was great getting to look at the Thunderbolts and Daredevil and Red Hulk, sure, but just kind of the way they expressed about why these stories endure so well. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Jurassic World, we all know, has a new movie coming. We know Scarlett Johansson's in it, Mahershala Ali's in it. A bunch of people are going to be in it. Well, now we have the official title. There was rumors of it before. Now it's official. And we've got a release date. Jurassic World Rebirth is coming in July. So it's less than a year away that the thing's coming out in theaters. Now, Variety just did an article on this. And I'm going to read it a little bit at length here because they actually give us some pretty good details. Details about the movie itself. They wrote the following. According to an official summary, the film will be set 5 years following the events of Jurassic World Dominion, when the planet's ecology has proven largely inhospitable to dinosaurs. Those remaining exist in isolated equatorial environments with climates resembling the one in which they once thrived. The synopsis continues. The 3 most colossal creatures within that tropical biosphere hold the key to a drug that will bring miraculous life-saving benefits to humankind. Sounds like a plot point we've heard in other things, like even in Avatar 2, where we catch the giant whales because of reverse aging, but still interesting nonetheless. Now it goes on more about the cast. The studio also revealed details about many of the characters in the film. Scarlett Johansson's character is a covert ops expert named Zora Bennett, who has been hired to lead the team to extract DNA from the 3 most gargantuan dinosaur species left alive. Ali plays Zora's partner, Duncan Kincaid, because of course his name's Kincaid. Bailey plays a paleontologist named Dr. Henry Loomis, and Rupert Friend from Homeland plays Martin Krebs, the representative from the drug conglomerate funding the expedition. I'm going to go out on a limb and bet that he's evil.
Yes.
Just wild guess here. Evil. And they talk about a number of others. So we got a whole bunch. By the way, let me bring this up again. Also, our first picture. If I can get back to it. There it is.
There you go.
Our first
I got
picture.
it here too. There you go.
From the movie. Again, not showing off any dinosaurs yet. The movie is still 11 months away.
Just checking out that corn, looks like.
Dinosaurs love corn.
Yeah.
Jonathan, don't overlook that. But there's also a bunch of other cast members because, you know, you need dino fodder.
Sure.
You need bodies there for dinosaurs to grotesquely destroy. So we got the date. We got the new title. Rebirth is interesting. I wonder if it has any more of a decent meaning. And of course, we've got some character descriptions. Listen, I was just kind of making fun of it a little bit because we've kind of heard that plot before, like in Avatar and other places, that, oh, these monsters hold a drug and whatever. Okay. But still, it's kind of new for the Jurassic World kind of movies. And it gives us a great point of plot for why Scarlett Johansson and her characters are there to do that. So I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like, this probably should have been the plot of the last one versus like the more focusing on insects, you know? I mean, maybe that kind of research was leading to this anyway, but I do feel like, man, they could have just jumped ahead to this story.
It is interesting that they're leaving out all the previous cast members.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's probably the right move at this point. It's time to kind of give it a little bit, even though the story, it's a continuation of the story, it at the same time is a little bit of a fresh start.
Yeah.
Much like Jurassic World was from the Jurassic Park movies.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like we make this argument with Star Wars, like there's a whole world. We don't have to just focus on these core characters. The entire world is now experiencing, for many, many years now, dinosaurs on the planet. So it's going to touch other lives, you know?
All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? We've got the official title now for the new Jurassic World movie, Jurassic World Rebirth. We've got a release date. It's less than a year away. It's coming out in July. And we got our first image and description of the movie. How are you feeling about it? Do you like what you're hearing? Could you care less? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Beetlejuice is rapidly coming upon us here, and it's almost out. And a lot of people are excited about it. They're giving opening weekend box office projections somewhere in the, what was it, $80 million range? I mean, it's looking good. Like, it looks like it's going to do big business. It looks like it's going to do very well. Well, the first reviews for Beetlejuice are now out, and they're pretty damn strong. Last I checked, it's holding a 78%. Now, you might say, John, I went to Rotten Tomatoes and I didn't see a percentage. Well, I had to do the maths. So out of 28 reviews submitted, 22 of them were positive. That equals a 78% critic rating right now, which again is pretty darn strong. Now, not everybody's loving it, and the ones that are liking it some of them aren't necessarily jumping up and down about it.
Right.
But this is what some of the reviews were having. Film Ireland magazine is saying, Burton tackles, they liked it. Burton tackles familiar characters and themes with his trademark visual style, making for a love letter to a beloved classic that hardly stands on its own, but doesn't fall on its face either. So, liked it. Didn't super love it, but liked it. New York Magazine wrote, and they liked it, Beetlejuice manages to avoid the feeling that its only obligation is to dutifully run through everything familiar one more time. Instead, watching it is a small but significant relief, like reconnecting with an estranged friend. The Daily Mail did not like it. They said Beetlejuice was very much of its time, a camp, vampy, Reagan-era Mickey take of yuppies and consumerism. Hard as screenwriters Alfred Gow and Miles Millar strain to imbue this sequel with the same spirit, they don't really pull it off. The Independent also didn't like it. They wrote, there are wonderful gags and some enjoyable grotesque clowning from the star Michael Keaton, but while Burton's visual inventiveness hasn't deserted him, but his ability to tell a coherent story is very much in doubt. The AV Club liked it, saying, like in the first Beetlejuice, there is a genuine enjoyment gleaned from spending time in a world built by such serious craftsmen to such playful ends. And it goes on. There's a lot of good ones, a couple more negative ones and things like that. Generally speaking, the reviews for Beetlejuice are good. They're good. The ones that don't like it don't seem to completely hate it. The ones that like it, for the most part, don't seem to completely love it, but are saying it's enjoyable. It's a great return to the form. And to be honest, I think that's kind of what most people who are going to see Beetlejuice are looking for.
I think that's the point.
Well,
right?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, the one person says it doesn't stand on its own. Well, yeah, but it's a sequel. And while I understand what they're saying, I mean, if this had just come out and Beetlejuice didn't exist before this, could it stand on its own? But that's not the point of this film. You're revisiting. And I do like that it doesn't seem like it's just nostalgia, but it's furthering along a story, you know?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. I have said for a long time that I thought this movie was about 15 years too late. And while I am a thumbs up original Beetlejuice. I like the original Beetlejuice movie. I don't think it's like the all-time classic that a lot of my contemporaries think it is. So I've never really seen the point of them making this movie. But, you know, the trailer they showed us at CinemaCon was really interesting and I liked. There's clearly an excitement for it. And it sounds like they pulled off a pretty good movie. We'll know more and find out more for ourselves pretty soon. Question is for you guys. What were you expecting from the first reviews of Beetlejuice? Are you encouraged hearing what they're saying? Were you kind of hoping it would be like in the high 90s or something? Maybe you can't wait to see this movie. Maybe you couldn't be interested any less. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we still got to talk about a couple things. Like Ridley Scott is saying that Alien vs. Predator ruined the Alien franchise. There's a supposed leaked set photo of Fantastic Four with an actual thing in costume. We're going to talk about that. And there's a report going around that Spider-Man 4, the Tom Holland Spider-Man 4, is going to come out somewhere in between Doomsday and Secret Wars. Should we believe it? We're going to talk about that and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second here and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Gametime and Miracle Made. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Gametime. My wife Ann and I love going to events, whether they're comedy shows, concerts, an LA Lakers game. I mean, just the other night we went to go see Ronnie Chang and it was awesome. We love having these new experiences and new memories. And our sponsor Gametime makes getting tickets for concerts and events faster and easier, even if you don't buy tickets right away. Because prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to the show start time. With killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying event tickets. I couldn't believe how easy and most importantly, intuitively, the entire app works. Finding the event I was looking for couldn't have been easier. The way it lays out the map of the venue, letting you know exactly where the seats are that you're looking for, and how easy the process was to choose and buy those tickets. So don't worry if you think you're too late to get tickets to that big event you and your friend want to go to. They have last minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. So guys, take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Campea for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Campea, C-A-M-P-E-A, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, Miracle Made. Guys, it's hot outside and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. So if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. There are just so many things that make these sheets so fantastic. We already mentioned the self-cooling properties for better quality sleep, but they're also self-cleaning. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. So go to trymiracle.com/Campea. That's TRYMIRACLE.com/Campea to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code Campea at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Campea and use the code Campea to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Campea to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. And thank you to our friends at Gametime and Miracle Made for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Ridley Scott, Hollywood icon, legendary filmmaker, recently was in an interview and he kind of made the suggestion that Alien versus Predator is what ruined the Alien franchise. This comes to us from folks over Geek Tyrant, who, quoting the interview, said this. This is Ridley Scott saying, "You get to the point where you say, okay, it's dead in the water. I think Aliens versus Predators was a daft idea. And I'm not sure it did very well or not. I don't know. But somehow it brought down the beast." So he's specifically pointing at Alien versus Predator. Now, look, I don't think there's anybody watching this show right now that is going to jump to the front of the let's defend Alien versus Predator line. All I'll say is this. While they are not Hollywood classic films, I got a bit of a kick out of the Alien versus Predator movie, particularly the second one. Again,
Requiem?
Yeah, I'm not saying they deserved any Oscars. I'm not saying they were great films. I'm just saying there was some fun to be had. If you went into them with the right mindset, I think there's some fun to be had, particularly with the second one. But that being said, were they great films? No. Did they do anything to further or help the legacy of the Alien franchise? No. But Ridley, come on. Now look, before I say what I'm going to say, let me be clear of something I said a little bit earlier. Ridley Scott is an icon. He is a legend. He's one of the greats. And if there were a Hollywood Hall of Fame, Ridley Scott is a first ballot Hall of Famer. No doubt, no question. I'm not arguing that. His last 15 years or so, not so great, maybe. Yeah.
And Gladiator 2 is still to be seen.
Yeah,
so.
By the way, I'm looking forward to Gladiator 2.
Me too.
And hey, The Martian was fantastic.
Yes. But
Ridley, you're talking as if Alien Cubed doesn't exist.
Cubed.
I mean, that's how it was spelled, right? Alien with the little 3.
Yeah.
You're acting like Alien Cubed. And like after that, we didn't get a little film called Alien Resurrection, which I could be wrong. Hold on a second. Let me pull this up. I think it made like $160 million. Let me see if I can find it here. Alien Resurrection. There it is. Yeah, it made $161 million at the box office. This is before the Alien versus Predator movies came out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you had Alien Cubed, which nobody celebrates. Didn't David Fincher direct that?
The third?
Alien Cubed? Yeah, I think David Fincher directed that, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, then you had Alien Resurrection. Ridley. The Alien franchise was pretty much dead by the time they got around Alien versus Predator. If anything, the hope was like Alien versus Predator might breathe a little bit of life back into the franchise. Now, whether it did or did not, I mean, that's up for debate. But also, Ridley, I would propose if you want to start pointing fingers at what ruined the Alien franchise, I think you might want to pull a Michael Jackson and start with The Man in the Mirror. Because Prometheus is a very divisive film.
Yeah.
Like, listen, there are some people out there who really like that film. All power to them. Like, really, really love that film. But there's a lot of people that don't. I'm one of them. I thought it had very, very lofty ideas, like super lofty ideas, but it did not execute. Like, and that's starting that opening with the engineers and everything like that on the planet.
Right.
Like, that was awesome. I like the first minutes of Prometheus, I was all in.
I was more into like wanting to see what the engineers were, not so much the beginning of the Alien. Like, they were much more interesting to me than that.
So you had Prometheus, which was very divisive, but it made about $400 million, roughly a Black Adam.
Mm-hmm.
But you can really tell how people responded to a movie by how many people go out to see the sequel. And when its sequel came out, Alien Covenant, which also was not a good movie in my opinion, almost half. It dropped almost in half because it went from making about $400 million for Prometheus down to about $240 million for Covenant. And that was directed by Ridley Scott.
Mm.
So while I will concur that Alien versus Predator and maybe Alien versus Predator Requiem didn't do anything to advance the mythology and advance the status of the Alien franchise, I would also submit that the franchise was pretty much ruined before Alien versus Predator ever came out. And the movies that came out after Alien versus Predator didn't do anything to help it much either with Prometheus and Covenant. Again, recognizing there are people out there, those films have their fans.
Sure,
100%. And I'm not taking anything away from that. But yeah, I would say Ridley, maybe you're looking in the wrong direction and you shouldn't be putting the blame for the ruination of the franchise. And by the way, thank God for Fede Alvarez for resurrecting this franchise, because he's breathed a lot more life back into the franchise thanks to Alien Romulus. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Do you agree with Ridley Scott that Alien was ruined by Alien versus Predator? Or do you kind of agree with me where it's like, well, actually, Ridley, the ruination of the property kind of started before Alien versus franchise, and Prometheus and Covenant didn't do it any favors. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You, of course, know there's a Fantastic Four movie coming.
Yep.
And supposedly, our first look at the practical, suited Ben Grimm, a.k.a. The Thing, has been leaked online. Now, the folks over at Slash'em shared this social media post that came from something called Cosmic Media, which, just to be blunt, I've never heard of, but that's fine. Of this picture, of what looks like a very accurate Fantastic Four suit compared to the other suits we've seen so far. And what looks like a practical thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that got a lot of people going. This is the thing. They're doing thing in practical and all this kind of stuff. Here's the thing, though. I do not believe what we are seeing in this picture is what's going to be in the movie. I don't think what we're seeing in this picture is what we're going to be seeing in the movie. Do you remember if you guys saw any of the behind the scenes features of like the Phantom Menace, Star Wars: The Phantom Menace? Ahmed Best often walked around, the guy who did the motion capture and the voice for Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
Ahmed Best walked around with a giant rubber Jar Jar head on. But you never actually see that in the movie because the plan was that was there for reference because it was all going to be CGI. And I want to remind you guys about the guy who's playing Ben Grimm. Eben Moss-Backrack said just a few months ago, he left no uncertainty about it. He said this: the thing is not going to be practical. It is going to be all motion capture. We go down to his quote. He says, in the past, I think they've done a suit. Michael Chiklis wore a suit. I like Michael Chiklis' suit, by the way. Michael Chiklis wore a suit, and that apparently was really uncomfortable. And it's kind of, we're past that, Moss-Backrack said. It's a little kind of cosplay, kind of amateur, that kind of stuff now with the technology that we have. He went on to say, my performance is going to be all motion capture. So, what then are we left to believe about this imagery we see coming out from the Fantastic Four set? I think we're seeing the same thing about what we had with the Jar Jar Binks. Now, I don't know this for a fact. I'm just going off of what the actor said, what Eben Moss said. He said it's going to be all CG. What I think we're seeing here is just a placement for reference.
Yeah.
I don't think that face, that mask that's being worn is what we're actually going to see on screen.
I think it's just a big mannequin.
It might also just be a big mannequin to stand there in place.
Yeah.
I mean, there might actually be an actor in that
Could
suit.
be.
And that's a big looking body.
Yeah.
And that's a big looking, but go back to my screen there for a second. Look at the size of them. That's great. But again, remember, we've been told, not by some Gus's gas station movie reviews.fart site. We've been told by the actor himself in no uncertain terms. I'm not wearing a costume. It's going to be all motion capture. That's what we're getting in this. So my guess, and again, it's just a guess, could be wrong, but my guess is what we're looking at is a reference. It's a physical thing to be in place as a reference for when they do the CGI and stuff. I don't know. I mean, Jonathan, I think the mask looks great. It does look really good. Do you think this is ultimately what he's going to look like?
I think it's pretty much because they, if you look at this picture here, we've got Johnny Storm looking like original comic book accurate, kind of style.
It's definitely the right costume too.
Yeah. And I think when we go back to like this shot here, yeah, that I think it's gonna look like the classic thing. Not like what was it, Josh Trank's version. It's gonna look like the classic thing. And frankly, like I get the Michael Chiklis stuff and the love for it, but it looked like what it was going to look like for that film. This looks like Marvel is overseeing this and it's part of the MCU and it's very accurate to what fans expect to see. I do not think this is in the movie in terms of like he's walking around in that. I think that's purely a stand-in. I think that's all it is. So,
yeah. And by the way, I have a deep appreciation for Michael Chiklis' costume. Although Eben Moss's comments where it looks a little cosplay today aren't wrong.
Yeah.
And when you watch those movies with him in it, you could tell the movement was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But listen, I also very much appreciated the design of thing that they had in the Josh Trank. Well, didn't really end up being Josh Trank's movie, but in that Miles Teller version of it,
Yeah.
I kind of liked it. It was a little bit more original. They made it their own kind of thing.
A little more like a slate, kind of like slate stone and whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking the look. I'm just saying that if this is going to be Marvel in the MCU, and you show people that, it's like, that's it. That's spot on.
Yeah. And so if you can get the best of both worlds, a more classic Fantastic Four thing look with all the freedom and the mobility and the movement and the action that motion capture and CGI will afford, we could be in for something really cool. So anyway, guys, question is for you. Do you believe that this image coming out of the set of Fantastic Four is like proof that it's going to be practical? We're going to have a practical thing. Or do you believe, like I do, and maybe I'm wrong, that, well, listen, Eben Moss said they're not using a practical costume, that it's going to be all motion capture, and this is probably more like a traditional reference point. I don't know. Whatever you guys think about it, I'm looking forward to it either way. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's jump into this, shall we? Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man No Way Home. 3 wonderful Spider-Man movies, all directed by John Watts. John Watts, who, by the way, is doing that new Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew.
Yes.
He's doing that new. So, like, if you like those Spider-Man movies, get excited for Skeleton Crew. I think it looks great. I can't wait to see it. And the fact that John Watts is doing it is wonderful. But there's been a lot of talk. Where is Spider-Man 4? Where is our 4th Tom Holland Spider-Man movie? We're looking for it. We're waiting for it. There have been a lot of fake bullshit stories that have come and gone over the past 2 years or so. Like, Sony and Marvel are having big disagreements. And Tom Holland is holding up this. And, oh, this is happening here. Oh, no, they're going to start shooting at the end of 2022. And all this kind of stuff that has all come to nothing. Well, now, there's a report going around today that Spider-Man 4 is going to start shooting in 2025 and will be released somewhere in between Doomsday and Secret Wars. That's what they're aiming for. Now, I need to point out something pretty important. This is, again, like a lot of those other nothing stories that came to nothing. This is not coming from any official source. This is coming from Daniel RPK, who is a online Twitter sort of scooper that more often than not is correct, but for me, incorrect enough times that I don't take it too deadly seriously. But again, I'm not trying to disparage it by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, I think he's right more often than not. And the very fact that we're bringing it up on the show is a testament that I think that if he's saying this is happening, it's worth at least discussing. Because like I said, he's right more often than not. But like all the other rumors we've had in the last couple of years, do not take this to the bank, because just recently we've had to talk about a couple times that he's been wrong. So with that giant disclaimer, let's talk about why this could be interesting. If they are targeting this thing to start shooting 2025 and come out in between Doomsday and Secret Wars, that's significant. Not just because it gives us a window of a release date, but it also really colors what this movie could possibly be about. Because here's the thing. You put this movie out prior to Doomsday, then Spider-Man 4 can be about whatever it wants. You put this movie out after Secret Wars, and where the whole multiverse saga thing is brought to a conclusion and closed off and all that kind of stuff. You put this thing out before Doomsday, it can be about whatever it wants. You put it out after Secret Wars, it can be about whatever it wants. But you put this movie in between Doomsday and Secret Wars, you suddenly have a very now narrow tube of possibilities. I almost did this and I realized that that's not a good imagery. You suddenly have a more narrow hallway.
Yes.
Of where your narrative can be. Because like all of us, maybe not all of us, the vast majority of us fans believe that the events of Doomsday are going to directly lead us into the events of Secret Wars. Not only for those of you who have read the comic stories, but just it seems to make sense. That's kind of what, Infinity War led us directly into the events, granted 5 years later, but they were the causality of the events of Endgame. So if that's the case, then what a lot of us as fans are speculating is that Doomsday is going to have pretty big repercussions. It's going to probably change the world that the MCU inhabits. And if Spider-Man 4 is taking place in that time frame, I don't know how you do it without it being directly connected to the events of Doomsday, which makes me wonder, because I totally believe Tom Holland will be in Avengers Doomsday. It makes me wonder if they're not actually going to play on that card of the emotional distress that Peter is going to feel looking at the face of a man that he held as a father figure, but is now the face of the world's greatest threat.
Mm-hmm.
And then that could lead us into the events of Spider-Man 4. And whatever the conclusion of Avengers Doomsday is and all that kind of stuff. So if this report is true, and guys, again, I have to emphasize, you have to take it with a grain of salt. It may very well not be, but for the sake of the discussion, if this report is true, and they're going to aim to have Spider-Man come out in between those two films, Jonathan, then I don't see a way that Spider-Man 4 is not directly connective tissue between the two, and also a byproduct of the events of Doomsday. I don't know. Do you think that's how people are going to look at it?
This
or what do you
seems
think?
like that's what it's leading to, and that's what most people, and they would have to be pretty naive to think that audiences aren't going to connect the dots.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, we connect dots that aren't even there half the time. But they could pull an Ant-Man and the Wasp, where literally nothing about the film connects to Infinity War.
It literally takes place in a different time.
Yeah.
Right. Which is unusual for Marvel. Marvel doesn't usually tell their movies out of sequential order.
Right.
They've done it a couple of times. So maybe they say Spider-Man 4, even though it's coming out after Doomsday, maybe they say the events of Spider-Man 4 takes place just before the events of Doomsday.
Right. And I could see audiences feeling like a little bit of letdown, but maybe even a little relief. And then they just connect like a mid-credit scene to Doomsday. Right. And then like, because where we left off with the second Spider-Man, and then where he shows up again in Infinity War, he's just on a bus and the aliens arrive and he gets the spider tingles and he's in the action. You know what I mean? So I could see that
the tingles.
I could see that as a possibility, but they also are leading the audiences by doing this, by saying, no, this is connected,
Yeah. Again, I think this just again proves what an absolute genius idea it was to bring back Robert Downey Jr. to play Doom. It opens up so many cool storytelling opportunities that just wouldn't be there if you just made him an unrecognizable face. Again, remember, Doom is going to be Doom. Doom is going to be Victor Von Doom.
Right.
It's just that the fact that he's not necessarily a variant of Tony Stark. Tony Stark may be a variant of Victor Von Doom. It's like, again, there's just so many rich storytelling possibilities here that it's just, I believe more and more that we look at it, it is an absolute stroke of genius to have him come back. And especially when you consider the impact this is going to have on Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be great. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this report going around that Spider-Man 4 is going to come out somewhere in between Doomsday and Secret Wars? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. If it does it kind of become connective tissue between the two? Is it a direct repercussion of the events of Doomsday? Or do they pull, like what Jonathan was saying, an Ant-Man and the Wasp, where the movie comes out in between Doomsday and Secret Wars, but they're going to say it takes place before the events of Doomsday. Whatever you guys think about it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it's now time for us to move on to the most important part of our show, which is taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second to thank another sponsor of today's episode, our friends at BetterHelp. We want to thank a sponsor of today's episode, BetterHelp. You know, guys, it's one of the most unfortunate human tendencies that we have to try to compare our life to others. And social media plays a big part of that. Comparison is like the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives because on the surface, it might look like they have it all together on their Instagram or YouTube, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. Give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Campea today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Campea. And thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get on to the important stuff, shall we? Your comments and questions. Jonathan, what we got up first?
Parmesan Cheese Princess says, hey, guys, I just binged all of Kevin Can F Himself on Netflix. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen. I'm hoping with it being on Netflix, it'll get the recognition it deserves. Have you guys seen it? And if you have, what do you think? I have not seen it.
I've never even heard of it.
Nor have I.
Which, again, is a testament to just how badly Netflix promotes their own original material. They do an okay job with 1% of their stuff, but honestly, I've never heard of it, but I will definitely go and keep my eye open for it now. Thanks for putting it on the radar. All right, what's next?
We got Anonymous who says, wanted to remember Chadwick Boseman, who died 4 years ago on August 28th, 2020. Wow. Some interesting things about his passing is that the day he passed was Jackie Robinson Day that year, who he played in the film 42. Also, August 28th is Jack Kirby's birthday, Black Panther writer.
I still remember exactly where I was. Like, I remember exactly where I was when I heard that Robin Williams died. I remember exactly where I was when I found out Paul Walker died. I remember exactly where I was when I found out Heath Ledger died. And I'll always remember exactly where I was when I found out that Chadwick Boseman had passed away. I was sitting in my living room with Ann and our friend Ryan. He's the guy in all my social media pictures that everybody keeps thinking is Ben Affleck. But we were sitting in our living room watching the new, I almost said Bob and Doug, the new, why am I freezing on it? The Keanu Reeves classic.
Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted.
Yeah,
I want to say Bob and Doug because I'm Canadian.
Yeah.
We were
69 dudes.
We were sitting in my living room watching the newest Bill and Ted.
Uh-huh.
And when I peeked down at my phone and the news came.
And isn't it crazy, like something like that, you didn't know he was sick. And then it was just like, what?
Well, you remember there was some speculation going around because a few weeks prior to that, he'd posted a social media video. I forget what he was talking about. But a lot of people were very concerned because he had lost a drastic amount of weight.
Right.
And so at first everybody was worried, but then it kind of evolved into a narrative of, oh, it must be for a role. It must be for a role.
Yeah.
But like none of us had heard he was dying. And so like I remember sitting there in my living room and just like Chadwick Boseman's passed away. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it registered as this is not right. This is
no, this can't be right.
This is like a sick prank or something. And then it's like, what?
Just crazy. All right, what's next?
We got Jay Abs who says, hi crew, happy birthday, Chris. Have you seen that one on one with Feige and Favreau last year during the 15th anniversary of MCU? Apparently RDJ was supposed to be Doom before MCU Iron Man. I didn't see it.
Okay, so I remember there being something about the fact that it was never cast. It was never 100% sure, but I remember there being some talk before about in another lifetime, they had talked about doing Dr. Doom, and Robert Downey Jr. might have been one of the people they were considering for it. But I think it may have gotten overplayed about how serious that was or how close it got. Again, I'm saying that off of a very thin memory about the incident, so I don't really remember, but it's another interesting little piece about how everything's connected. All right, what's next?
J-Rod UK says, hi all, there's about 20 minutes of commercials in front of the feature at my local cinema. Who gets the revenue from these adverts? The individual theater, the theater chain, or does it go to the distributor studio of the film showing?
It goes to the theater.
Yeah, if that's commercials, it's going to the theater.
And by the way, it's not that much. See, that's the thing. People think that the studios are making like $5,000 every movie showing when they show those trailers. It's really not a thing. We did the math one year. A couple of years ago, we did the math and we broke it down. And we determined that if you took out all trailers, which I don't want them to, I love trailers. I did a documentary about trailers. But if you took out all, like 26 minutes of trailers and commercials, to make up for that lost revenue, movie theaters would have to act. Because everybody says they'll have to jack up the movie ticket prices. We did the math. And the numbers we came up with was they would have to increase movie ticket prices by 11 cents.
That's a deal breaker for me.
If you if you had me walking into a theater and say, hey, sir, thanks for coming to our movie theater. Before your show, we're going to show you 26 minutes of commercials. But for 11 cents, you can bypass all that and just start your movie. I'll gladly pay the 11 cents.
Do the ad-free version.
Yeah, give me the ad-free version. Even though I'm already paying for my movie ticket, so I should already have the ad-free version. But if to get it is an extra 11 cents, charge me the extra 11 cents. All right, what's next?
All right, we got Jamesy Boy says, I'm not sure if Chris will be here today. That I think was from yesterday, but we do have something in common. We have the same birth week as my birthday is tomorrow. So today, the 30th. Speaking of the 30 years ago, what's everyone's favorite movie from 94? Lion King, Pulp Fiction, True Lies. I mean, you had Shawshank Redemption that year as well.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Was the same. Pulp Fiction. Yeah, no, that's an easy question. I mean, listen, 1994 was a fabulous year for movies. Just the ones we've already mentioned.
Right.
No doubt the best of that year was Shawshank Redemption. It is one of the greatest films in cinematic history.
Yeah. I saw something today, and I don't know if it's true, couldn't verify it, but it said in October of 94, you had Shawshank, Forrest Gump, Jurassic Park, and Pulp Fiction all playing in the theater at the same time.
At the same time?
Because some were coming in and some were going out, but they were all in the theater at the same time.
Man.
October of 94.
Oh, man. Anyway. All right. What's next?
Okay. We got Matan who says, one problem that irks me with The Acolyte, even after cancellation, that it was more guilty than Secret Invasion did of being a stretched out movie, but cutting in the middle instead of a cliffhanger like those on Netflix. It feels odd that The Acolyte is a worse case of an 8-hour movie than Secret Invasion, as it actually had a writer's room and multiple directors, yet it felt somehow more stretched out and stopping in the middle instead of with cliffhangers.
I mean, by the way, there's a bunch of people telling me that Saving Private didn't come out in 94. Guys, I'm the worst in the world when it comes to movie dates. I have no expertise in movie dates, so if I'm getting that mixed up, forgive me. Anyway. I saw a really interesting stat today. Did you know that the day after they announced the cancellation of The Acolyte, it was the #1 streaming thing on Disney Plus?
Interesting.
And the #2 streaming thing in the world, only behind House of the Dragon.
Curiosity.
The day after they announced the cancellation of it.
Curiosity.
Now, look, I'm not saying that as a defense of The Acolyte. I hated the show. I hated it so much I ultimately tapped out of it. But here's the thing. The problems with The Acolyte were purely fundamental storytelling issues. They just dropped the ball on the fundamentals. Like, it's a murder mystery where we solve the murder in episode 1. It's a big uncovering. Like, what was this horrible thing the Jedi did? Turns out it was really a misunderstanding. I mean, like, every piece along the way, they did some things very good. Look, I love giving flowers to movies and TV shows I don't like. And the action sequences were great. The guy who played Soul from Squid Game, I thought he did a very good job. There were good things about it. But it's just that they botched it on the fundamentals, which is really surprising considering this came from the same team that gave us Russian Dolls. Now, I know a lot of you haven't seen Russian Dolls, But take mine and Rob's word for it. Russian Dolls is awesome. Awesome. And so I had really high hopes for Acolyte, and it was, at the end of the day, pretty much unwatchable. At least in my opinion. I know the show has its fans, though. All right, what's next?
Just the Tip says, hey crew, so I just opened my Apple TV Plus and looks like they actually did it. Napoleon Director's Cut is out. 48 minutes of extra footage. I will probably check it out this weekend. But now I thought we were told a while ago that the Director's Cut was going to be like much longer, like 2 hours longer.
Yeah, the original, when the original story came out about Napoleon getting an elongated cut, it was like significantly longer. Okay, but whatever. I simply do not hate myself enough to make myself watch that again.
I haven't seen it yet, so I might just try, and then I can always peace out. But
do yourself a favor and at least do it with the theatrical cut before you subject yourself to the extra 48 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just not a good movie. And
which is a shame, because that was a highlight for you guys coming out of CinemaCon.
Oh, dude, because they showed us the battle on the frozen lake.
Yeah.
And it blew our minds. Like, I came out of that CinemaCon so stoked for Napoleon. I was so excited for it. And it's just not a good movie. So I have no desire to watch the extra 48 minutes. All right, what's next?
Megan Red says, hey team, saw Everything Everywhere last night on IMAX. Thanks, AMC. Amazing experience, especially after smoking a joint beforehand.
Ha!
Help me choose tonight's movie, Coraline 3D re-release, first time viewing, or Strange Darling. Well, I saw Strange Darling last night.
Oh, that's right. That was yesterday you saw it. What did you think? Everybody's raving about it.
I will say, well, like midway through, I started piecing things together because I knew nothing about it. I followed everyone's. And then by the third act, before the reveal, I had figured it out, and then the reveal confirmed it. Regardless of all that, it was great. And it is, you feel tense the entire movie. You're just on edge the entire time. So if you want that, do that. I'm not a huge fan of 3D. If it was Coraline 2D, I'd say that maybe, if you didn't want the intensity of Strange Darling can be graphic. So I'll say that.
So it's definitely an R-rated film.
For sure.
By the way, I'm also not the biggest fan of Coraline. I mean, don't get me wrong. I liked it. I'm a thumbs up person on Coraline. I liked Coraline, but again, much like Beetlejuice to me, I don't like it as much of as a lot of my contemporaries do.
I remember I've seen it once and it was in the theaters, and I remember thinking, you know what? I kind of like that. It was creepy.
I liked it.
Yeah, but I've never seen it again.
Yeah, it's just not all-time classic level for me, but the way it is for a lot of people today. This is the thing. This is why some people are so stupid. Like, I got Vet in live chat saying, John is hating today. What fucking part of I like the movie, I'm a part of the thumbs up group was too difficult to understand?
You didn't say it was the best movie ever.
If you don't say my favorite movie is the greatest movie ever, you hated it. It's, oh, fuck's sakes. This is one of the reasons I can't wait to retire. I'm so excited about retiring, Jonathan. Seriously. Oh my God. People just remind me every day. Like, every once in a while I think, you know what? Maybe I don't need to retire. And then I get people like this online. It's like, no, really, I'm excited about retiring.
People like take 20% of what we say half the time, and I'll go back and listen to it. I'm like, I was crystal clear. And somehow they extrapolated their chosen fact out of what I said.
That has happened to me. Like, my communication style, because like a lot of people complain about it, but I've always stuck with it because I know better when it comes to this, because I've experienced it and I've seen it happen all the time. It's more effective. I repeat things a lot when I communicate, and I get people complaining about it.
You have to.
But because whenever I don't, like, I can make the point very clearly. You know, Michael Caine was brilliant in this film, and then I can go off and say other things. If I don't say Michael Caine was brilliant in this film at least 3 times, then I'll get hit with like 20 comments saying, why does John hate Michael Caine so much in that? It's like, Anyway. All right, what's next?
All right. Herald of Darkness. Remedy Entertainment and Annapurna Pictures announced a strategic partnership. Annapurna will finance 50% of the development cost of an upcoming Control 2 video game, and in turn will bring Control and Alan Wake franchises to film and television.
Yeah. Now, look, I've seen people talking about this morning. I want people to be very, very careful about this before getting too excited about it. Because especially Alan Wake was such a massively popular game and like nominated for all the awards and stuff like that. But remember, this is a preliminary agreement. I'm not saying these movies aren't going to happen. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is there are lots of times that agreements get made and then nothing comes of them. This isn't a green light of these movies. What it is saying we have an agreement that we could do this. And we'll probably get a writer or two and see what we can develop. And hopefully it gets to the point where they go, yes, we've got all of our ducks in a row. Let's green light this thing and let's make it. So could we get these movies? Absolutely. It sounds like that's what they want to do. I'm just saying don't get too excited yet until we hear about an actual green light. All right, what's next?
CJ Adams says, John, I am sick and tired. Sick and tired, I tell you, of people misunderstanding Avengers Doomsday. It's all multiverse. Clearly, the Avengers are going to be fighting DC's Doomsday.
That would be funny. Yeah, DC, like all of a sudden a portal opens up and Superman fighting this giant bone creature comes flying through. By the way, how many times have they used Doomsday? Many, many, many. By the way, honestly, I can't remember the name of the storyline. I think it came after the death of Superman. I think. I could be wrong about this because it's been decades. But the origin story of DC's Doomsday is awesome and heartbreaking. The basic gist of the origin story of Doomsday is he was created by Kryptonian scientists who are trying to make the ultimate evolved warrior. And what they do is they would get a baby on this planet and then toss it out an airlock into this unsurvivable atmosphere on this weird planet. And the baby would die. They collect the body, get the DNA, reclone it, do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. And then when it started to evolve a little bit to survive the environment, they threw in these horrible monsters. And they'd throw the baby out and it would survive for a minute, and these monsters would come and rip it to pieces. And they get the DNA and do it again and do it again until ultimately they end up with Doomsday, right? Which explains why Doomsday has such a hate on for Kryptonians and why he goes off and kills Superman later. Anyway, I'm going way too deep into it. But I'm just saying, if you ever get a chance to read the actual story about the origins of Doomsday, it's awesome, but it's also tragic and heartbreaking and disturbing.
Yeah,
anyway, there's that. Okay, what's next?
Okay, moving on to our member questions.
Sorry, Bunko Bilbo on the live chat. Good parenting, in my view.
Oh, God.
Got to make him tough.
With a TIE fighter. How fitting. Of course, an Imperial supporter would say that. Kickin' Wing says, Blink Twice deserves better at the box office. I was really impressed with Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut.
You know, I've heard good things about, again, this past weekend was a weekend that Ann and I went to Vegas, so I didn't go to see any movies this weekend. Yeah, Blink Twice only made $7 million at the box office.
I don't know if it's just because it's, what's the how many theaters? 3,000.
3,000.
Whoa, that is not a limited release.
No, it had a full wide release.
Sheesh.
Yeah, that's, again, too bad. I'm curious to see it personally. I've heard good things. I like the people involved with it, so I'm going to go see it. But yeah, it looks like didn't do so great. All right, what's next?
Okay, Marco says, hi, John. Just wondering if you happen to notice in Inside Out 2, the girl Riley up on the other team. Wait a minute. The girl Riley look up to on the the girl that they looked up to on the other team, right? Wore her shirt like Wayne Gretzky did with his superstition, always having one side tucked in and the other side not out.
That's not a terribly uncommon thing. I know Gretzky kind of popularized it, but there have been a lot of players that have done that since. I don't know if that was meant as an homage to the great one. By the way, statistically speaking, okay, data and statistically speaking, it's not even remotely close. Wayne Gretzky is the greatest professional athlete of all time. There has never been an athlete that has dominated their sport the way Wayne Gretzky dominated hockey. It would be as if Michael Jordan held all the records for most points, most assists, most rebounds, most three-pointers, if Michael Jordan had all of that, then he'd be in the conversation with Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky holds every significant record there is. by miles. Like, not by a few points, not even by, in some cases, by 1,000 points. He outdistances the second. Like, it's just no question. It's not close. I love Tom Brady, but I'm sorry, it's not close. The greatest professional, the most dominant professional athlete in their sport of all time is Wayne Gretzky, and statistically, there is no arguing it. It just is. But a lot of countries, particularly the one I live in right now, don't really understand hockey, and so they don't really get it. That's okay. All right, what's next?
Sora fan says, hey, John, just saw the new title, Jurassic World Rebirth, and I really dig it. It wasn't a huge fan, or they weren't a huge fan of the last one. I'm hoping the new one changes the way they see this franchise.
Yeah, I did not love the last one either. I didn't think the last one was terrible. Made over $1 billion again and something, but it was weaker. No doubt, it was weaker. I got a lot of faith in this new one. The very fact that someone like Scarlett Johansson would sign up for it and Mahershala Ali, I thought, I like the director they've got on board with it. You got the original screenwriter from the first Jurassic Park movie is writing it. They've got a lot going for it. Now it might end up being terrible, but right now I've got my, I'll put my $5 on it. All right, what's next?
James says, with the World Cup being held in the U.S. in 2026, do you think Apple TV Plus is looking to utilize this for Ted Lasso season 4?
Maybe. By the way, it's not just in the U.S. It's also in Canada. If I correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat.
Yeah.
But what did I say?
No, I'm just saying. I'm just reiterating the World Cup.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat, but I believe it's in the U.S. and Canada and Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like a North American thing.
Yeah, I believe so, because the video I saw, they were like kind of retrofitting some stuff in Canada, U.S., and Mexico for the So.
I remember once a while ago we were talking about box office, mentioned North America, and I mentioned Mexico. Somebody, John doesn't understand geography. Mexico's not a part of North America. Huh?
You know, there's technically not, although we refer to it as Central America, which would be like Panama and whatever. That's still North America. Until you get to South America, that is all North America.
Mexico is indeed.
Yeah. CJ Reaver says,
America.
I'm personally fine with the Acolyte having been canceled, but not because it has Amandla or anything. It just felt disappointed overall by how it was presented, the writing, and that it should have been a movie. And that's saying something for me because I enjoyed Rise of the Skywalker, yet was let down by Acolyte.
Well, I'm glad you liked Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
I hated that movie, but yeah, look, here's the thing: you had a lot of your big pussy man babies out there crying and whining about women, people who are black. Anyway, doing their normal pathetic little song and dance. When really there is absolutely nothing in that show that is normally the subject of what they're just whining that they're there. But it wasn't a good show. I mean, it's fun. There again, I always want to acknowledge that The Acolyte has its fans, and that's awesome. And I celebrate. If you like The Acolyte, I think that's awesome. I did not. So we're going to have a very honest conversation about it. So I'm glad you liked it, but I certainly did not. I thought it was terrible. I thought they dropped the ball on all the different things. Had nothing to do with the fact that it's a girl or anything like that. It was bad writing. It was bad story. It was bad plotting. It was bad. It was the fundamentals of making a good show. And they just fundamentally did, in my opinion, did not make a good show. And I had to tap out. It was so bad. Anyway, that's just me. All right. What's next?
Jai CSC says, I know they often say strike while the iron is hot. So sequels to a successful movie tend to release 2 to 3 years later. But Avatar, Star Wars, Top Gun, Inside Out, etc. had huge box office success after long gaps. I think audiences are more patient to long waits, especially if the movie is good.
The problem with that logic, to me at any rate, is let's take Top Gun, for example. Top Gun became a cultural touchstone. Like, everybody knows Top Gun. Like, like everybody knows Top Gun. Everybody saw Top Gun. So it's like a truly deep part of the pop cultural zeitgeist. Avatar was the biggest film in the world. It was the biggest film of all time. Right? The absolute number one biggest film of all time. I think to try to glean a principle off of those very special circumstances and special examples and say, well, then this is the lesson that can be applied to any movie that kind of is big, and you can just wait 15 years after any. I don't think you can do that. I think you have to recognize there's a difference in the circumstances. So while that may have been true for these monumentally huge culture defining films of generations, it doesn't mean you can do the same thing for, I don't know, Happy Death Day 4 or something like that.
And also these examples are so vastly different. Avatar took a long time because it took a long time. It was technologically, it's so technically advanced for the movie industry. It took a long time to develop that.
I mean, listen, there's just certain things that James Cameron, good Canadian kid, by the way, would just say, we're not moving forward until I've developed this piece of technology that we're working on. And so it happens. But again, I still think for 95% of films, I don't think you can wait too long to throw out a sequel. Again, I'm not saying you have to do it in the first year, but I'm just saying, I think for 95% of films, you will get diminishing return the longer you wait to put out a sequel to it. All right, what's next?
Risky Pin says, what are your thoughts on the new set photo of the Thing Fantastic Four First Steps? Could this be the best interpretation of the Thing yet in the Fantastic Four movies?
Well, we already talked about that in the show. I don't think that's actually the thing that you saw. Eben Moss-Bachrach made it he said in no words that had to be interpreted, we are not doing a practical costume. It's going to be all motion capture. What I believe, and I could end up being wrong about this, I don't know, I'm just guessing, but what I believe what we're looking at is a stand-in reference like we used to have for Phantom Menace with Jar Jar, right? Again, you never saw the rubber Jar Jar head. It was just there for reference for the CG artists. So I think that's what we have here, because Eben Moss-Bachrach made it very clear that he's not going to be wearing any costumes. It's all going to be motion capture. All right, what's next?
Amin says, important question. Does Megalopolis make more than Borderlands on opening weekend? What do you think is its cap at right now?
Whoo! I'm just going to look up to remind myself, because what was it, $8 million that Borderlands made? Now it's opening weekend, 8.6. Does Megalopolis make more than 8.6? Yes. I mean, that's a tiny number. That's a pathetic number.
Right.
For a movie, I mean, for a movie that I make, that's glorious. But for a movie that cost over $100 million to make, I don't know, let's say it makes $12 million. That's pathetic. Even if it makes twice that, $24 million. Not good. But yes, I'm going to say I can see it making more than 8.6. I don't think it's going to make much more than 8.6, but I think it'll make more than 8.6. All right, what's next?
Imperial Executioner says, hey, crew, happy Thursday. Looks like Lioness Season 2 premieres October 27. Is that a game day for you all? That first season was intense.
Still haven't watched it.
Not me either, so.
I love Zoe Saldana. I love those kinds of shows. I've heard nothing but amazing things about it, but I've never gotten around to watching it. And I'm not going to start today, because you know what I'm doing today, Jonathan, after we're done the show?
What are we doing?
I'm watching some Lord of the Rings.
Ooh,
I'm watching Rings of Power.
So you got an early advanced screening, because I'm watching it on Saturday at 3 p.m. when it premieres.
What?
Yeah, Saturday at 3 p.m. That's when I'm watching it.
Oh, is that
I just
your
assume
premiere?
that's when it's premiering.
No, it's coming out. It came out last night at midnight.
Yeah.
And my plan was to stay up and watch all 3 episodes that they dropped. But around 10:30, I'm like, who am I kidding? I am not going to stay up till 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So I ended up not watching it yet, so I'm going to watch it a little bit later today. But at some point, I am going to watch Lioness Season 1. All right, what's next?
All right. We got Assistant Professor X. Hi, John and Jonathan. During the Spider-Man 4 negotiations with Sony, do you think Rothman was told of RDJ returning as Doom? And if not, do you feel he may want to renegotiate?
Renegotiate what?
Yeah, I don't.
There's no. I mean, they've got their deal in place about how it works. Marvel can produce films with the live action Spider-Man. Sony then controls those movies. They decide when it gets released, where it gets released, how it gets released, the marketing campaign. They control the movie because Spider-Man is their character.
Right.
But that deal is already in place and in paper, and it makes no difference and makes no changes. And there's nothing to renegotiate. I mean, if you are going to use Spider-Man in Doomsday and Secret Wars, that does nothing but good things for Sony. It means they're going to make more money with their movies. So no, I don't think there's anything to renegotiate. Their deal's already clad. He's got no leverage. He's got no leverage, even if he did want to renegotiate. But there's really nothing to negotiate here.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Will DLC says, I love the fact that Black Adam is now an accepted unit of measure for when discussing box office returns. Scientifically, we found it is the most accurate unit
Yes,
of measure.
this movie made 0.08 Black Adams.
Yeah.
This movie made 1.5 Black Adams. It's just kind of evolved. The only other time a movie thing has evolved into a... I think I've told this story before, but for those of you who maybe not have heard it, those of you who've watched me, I have not for at least 5 years, maybe 6 or 7 years. I don't give scores to movies when I review them. When I review a movie, I tell you what I liked and I tell you what I didn't like, and I give you my overall thoughts on it. But I don't give it a score. I don't give it 7 popcorn buckets or 3 lightning bolts or 5 stars or anything. I don't do that. Nope, nothing against anybody else who does that. That's perfectly valid. It's perfectly great. I'm just saying for me, because I realized that, like, I would give a movie a 7, right?
Right.
And a 7 out of 10, I mean, that's 3 away from perfect. And I've only ever given, like, in my whole career, I've given like 5 10 out of 10s or 6 10 out of 10s in my lifetime. But I'd give a movie a 7 because to me, like, a movie's a solid, good movie. I really enjoyed it. Totally solid film. 7 out of 10, right? What would inevitably happen is like, why did John hate it? Why didn't John give it a 10? Why did he hate it? So I realized that what's the point in giving a score to a movie if everybody's going to interpret the score differently? That led me from, there was a little news story that came out back when Superman Returns came out. And of course, Superman Returns starred, I almost said Eli Roth, Brandon Routh, who is not Eli Roth. And there was a true story, by the way. This is verified true story.
True story. Love it.
The studio had some problems with the footage of Brandon Routh in some shots in the Superman costume because his bulge was too big. And I'm not talking about his bicep. And so they literally went in and digitally, you know how they digitally took off Henry Cavill's mustache? They literally went in and digitally reduced the size of the bulge that Brandon Routh had in the Superman costume. So the guy I was doing, one of the guys I did my podcast with at the time, his name is Darren Connolly. All the way back in the movie blog, the audio edition days. Darren Connolly was great. I love Darren. But Darren said later on in that same episode, we were talking about a movie that was like the full package. Like this, I can't remember which movie we were talking about, but we said this movie is the full package. And Darren said, would one say that this movie is Routh? Because there's a total package.
Right.
And so we developed a movie rating system. And for a couple of years, our movie rating system was either no, like don't go see it.
Right.
Go see it. And the top of the 3 was Routh, meaning it was the whole package. And so for years, that was our movie rating system, no, go, or Routh.
Wow.
And so today, following in that tradition, we kind of judge movies box office by Black Adams.
Yeah.
It is roughly 1 Black Adam, slightly short of Black Adam.
It's something everyone can wrap their head around.
Something everybody can wrap their head around.
Yeah.
All right, guys. And that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. Number 1, because you gave us fun things to talk about. But number 2, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. I want to thank, of course, Jonathan Voico.
See you guys.
My name is John Campea. May you have a Routh of a day. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.